Welcome back to Simply Money. Tonight, we're going to be talking about 5 investment accounts you need for 2025. Did you know that nearly 70% of Americans don't have a designated investment account? And so let's change that tonight. Do you know that most people don't even know where to start? And I shouldn't say most people, but a large majority of people don't even know where to start. And that's something I'm actually glad that a lot of companies have gone to the default where when you join their company, you're automatically enrolled in their 401k up to whatever their match is. So if they have a 3% match, they automatically enroll you into the 401k. And I think this is good because then it forces you to have to opt out of it. And people are pretty passive with that. Excuse me. So instead of making people opt in, they're making them opt out, which I think is a really good thing because it gets that ball started. It gets them going in the right direction, even if it's only 1, 2, 3, or 4%, whatever the match is. It's getting that going so they begin investing early in their career or their job. And I think that's really important. So, do you want to know where to put your hard earned money for maximum growth and tax savings in 2025? We're diving into the Roth IRAs, 401ks, HSAs, and traditional IRAs, as well as SEPs. And we're going to look at the strategies, the pros and cons of each of these, and help you make decisions that would be beneficial for you because there's certain order that people recommend that you do, and I will recommend what order I think you should utilize these types of accounts. But there are circumstances where this order is not necessarily the best, and you'll have to decide that. You'll have to do a little bit of homework, look at your own situation, your future goals, and make those decisions. But I'll give you the guidelines where I feel like it's best to start and what order to utilize them. So let's get started. We're going to start with the Roth IRA. We're going to give a highlight of the importance and understanding of the tax benefits, contribution limits, the right order of prioritizing accounts to build wealth. And so that's what we're going to start with. And we're going to get going right now with the Roth IRA. The Roth has a contribution limit of $6,500. That's $541 a month. You can put it all in a lump sum. You can put it in, pieces here and there. There's no amount throughout the year, as long as at the end of the year you haven't gone over the $6,500. And just to kind of give you an idea, if you were to use just a Roth and you put $6,500 in annually, and you did that for 30 years at an 8% return, that till you were 65, just doing one of these accounts, the Roth, you're looking at $850,000. And that's tax free when you go to withdraw that. So that's an incredible way to get started in your investment journey. The Roth is just an amazing tool to utilize. So I encourage you to look into that if you don't have a Roth. And here's the other thing: if you're over 50, you can do the catch-up contribution, which is an additional $1,000. So you can actually contribute up to $7,500 per year. And that's intended for people, like I said, over 50 years old who need to maybe gain a little bit of extra toward their retirement. So it allows you to contribute that amount and do a little bit of catching up on your contributions. Now, there is a catch with the Roth. There's an income limitation. If you're single and you make over $153,000 a year, and I know for some people they're like, well, I'm out, I can't contribute to this. And other people are like, I wish I made $153,000. Again, this isn't a one size fits all. So I'm just sharing this information. If you're single and you make $153,000, you begin to phase out how much you can contribute to the Roth up to $168,000, at which point, if you make $160K annually, you can't contribute to a Roth. So just something to keep in mind. And if you're married, the phase out begins at $228,000 up until 243,000. If you make over 243,000, you can't contribute to a Roth at all. So again, this is just a quick overview of what the Roth is and why it's so important, because it's tax-free growth. Now you're going to pay taxes if you, even if you have an automatic withdrawal or deposit from your paycheck, they're going to take taxes out. Then they're going to make the contribution that you've set up into the Roth, but it will grow tax-free. And here's the beautiful part of it is when you go to take that money out after 59 and a half, it's withdrawn tax-free. There's no taxes on that. So it's a great supplement to, if especially if you're going to be in a high income bracket in retirement. The other benefit of it is there's no required minimum distribution, the RMD. If you're not familiar with that, and it's changing now, I think it's 73. When you hit 73 years old, you have to take a certain amount out of your traditional IRA 401ks, because the government's allowed you to grow that tax free for all those years. They're wanting some money. They're wanting you to start withdrawing some of that so they can tax it. But the Roth, because there's no tax on the withdrawal, you don't have to pay taxes, and there's no RMD, which is great because you don't have to take money out that you may not need. And you can put that into your trust or into your will, and it goes on to your children or whoever you leave it to, and they don't have to pay the tax on that. It can transfer over. Um, and the other thing, and a lot of people don't know this, is the contributions can be withdrawn at any time, not the earnings. So let's just say you've put in $10,000 over 2 years, and it's now up to maybe $13,000 with growth. You could actually take that $10,000 out because it's already been taxed. There's no penalty on that. You can't take out the earnings, can't take out the growth. So it's nice to know it's there if you need it. Again, I would highly recommend never touching it. It would have to be dire straits for you to have to touch that Roth, because you want that to continue to compound and grow. But it is nice to know that you can take the earnings out at any time. So maybe, I'm sorry, the contributions out at any time. So maybe you retire when you're 55 and you need some money, obviously, until Social Security kicks in. You can take out money from your 401k at 59 and a half. So from 55 to fill in that gap, you could take out the contributions you've made over the years to your Roth. The drawbacks, again, is it's after tax contributions, so you don't get any immediate tax break. And then there's the income restrictions. This is a great tool. I highly recommend, if you're going to start investing, get a Roth and get one opened. But I'll tell you in a minute here what's even more important to start with before the Roth. But with that information out there, the income levels and the contribution limits and the tax benefits, that's why you want to consider using a Roth. So the second account we want to look at is just a traditional IRA. This is very much like a Roth in the sense of you open it up. It's an individual retirement account that you open up, and it has the same limitations, contribution limits of 6,500 annually and 7,500 if you're over 50. The income deduction limits, it's covered by workplace plans. It can kind of get confusing. I'm not going to get into that, because what I want you to look at is the traditional IRA is a great way to get the tax benefit now. The difference with the Roth and the traditional is the traditional, they're going to take out your contribution and then tax you on the rest of your income. So it's contributed pre-tax. So it can have the benefit of giving you more ability to put money in now, to give you a greater amount that you can put in now. But when you go to retire, you're going to be paying taxes from those withdrawals. The growth is tax free. You're not paying taxes while it's growing. But when you go to use that money, say you have $500,000 in there, you're 65 years old, and you take out $50,000 to utilize that. 50,000 is going to be taxed, uh, either as capital gains or if it's dividends, depends how it's being paid. But you are paying taxes on that, because you didn't pay taxes when you put it in. If you haven't figured it out, There's tax benefits to all of these, but the government's going to get taxes from you one way or another, before or after. They're going to get their taxes. Whether we like it or not, that's how it is. So it's good to know what the different benefits are of paying taxes before you contribute or paying taxes after you contribute into your retirement. But knowing that the growth in these is that they are growing tax free. So if you have hundreds of thousands of dollars growing, you're not paying taxes each year, and it allows it to compound faster. So the drawbacks is taxes on withdrawals in retirement, and with the traditional IRA, there's RMDs, the required minimum distribution, starting at age 73. You'll have to take out a certain percentage of the amount you have in there, whether you need it or not. So it's something to keep in mind. And this is really best for people who need an immediate tax break now, or maybe you don't qualify for the Roth because your income level is too high. So this is obviously an alternative for people who make more than those income level uh, restrictions that the Roth has. Now, the third account I want you to look at is the 401k. Now, this is usually an employer sponsored retirement account, um, and oftentimes they'll have a match. But the contribution limit on this is 23,000 annually. So it gives you an opportunity to invest a whole lot more into this type of account. And if you're over 50, the catch up on this is 7,500, which brings the annual contribution limit to $30,500. So if you have an employer sponsored 401k and you have the means to put that kind of contribution in, you can be contributing $30,000 a year. And if you're doing this for, let's just go back to the 23,000 annually, that's almost $2,000 a month. If you have the means to do that, imagine when we said $541 a month in the Roth would grow to $850,000 after 30 years. Imagine what your 401k would grow to if you're maxing that out for all those years. I know obviously a lot of people cannot do that. And they're like, yeah, I wish I could max it out. And you can't. That's okay. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, don't do it unless you can max it out. I'd rather you start with $50 if that's all you can do. Put $50 in a month and get consistent with that. And then, down the road, as life moves on, as maybe you get pay raises, as you begin to get out of that debt, as maybe your kids move out, as you get older, you have more disposable income that you can put into it, and you can do some of those catch ups. And that's why they have those catch up contribution for these accounts, is because a lot of people during their younger years and when they're raising their families don't have the disposable cash to put the money in, so they want to give them an opportunity to put a little bit more in their later years before they retire. But a 401k, the benefits is a higher contribution limit, obviously, and again with the potential employer match. If you're making $100,000 and there's a 3% employer match, that's $3,000 that's being put into your account for you. That's on top of your income. That's like another $3,000 of income. It's just going into your retirement. But in order to get that, you have to put in that up to 3% or whatever the match is. They will match it. Some do a 50% match. So they'll do 50% up to 6%. So it's really like saying they'll do 3%, but you have to contribute 6% to get their 3%. Another benefit is this is tax deferred growth and tax free withdrawals if you do a Roth 401k, which they do have those. One of the downfalls with these is they have limited investment options. This is why I'm not a big fan of 401ks, because whatever the funds that they offer for you to invest in, that's all you get to choose from. Where in your Roth or your IRA, you can basically invest in anything, any stock, any ETF, any mutual fund. You're not limited to just a select few things that the 401k supplies. So that's one of the downfalls, but it's definitely not something that I would say don't contribute to just because you don't have a choice, especially if they have a match. So your limited investment options and obviously the early withdrawal penalties, you can't withdraw from this until you're 59 and a half. There is a rule of 55. If you turn 55 and you retire from the company, you can begin to withdraw from your 401k. So there's some little loopholes there. We're not going to get into that in this video. Just know there are penalties. Let's say you are 40 years old and you need $10,000 and you take it out of your 401k. You're going to take that $10,000 out. You're going to pay the taxes on it and you're going to pay a 10% penalty. So you're really getting nailed hard on taking that money out. So obviously, I recommend never, ever, ever touch your 401k again, unless it's a dire emergency, which, if those things come up, then money doesn't matter. If it's a medical emergency or some other emergency, but be careful what we grow into our economic plans of what is constituting emergencies. I talk about this even in our budgeting videos. When we talk about the emergency fund, people say, "Oh, I need to use my emergency fund because my dishwasher broke." That's really not an emergency. That's a want. That's a luxury. I know it may seem like an emergency, but you can wait on that. You can start putting money aside to replace that, but I don't think that constitutes an emergency. So a 401k emergency definitely has to be way bigger, way more extravagant than my dishwasher broke. So just keep that in mind as you're understanding what these accounts are, why they're important, how they are utilized, and the drawbacks to them. So that drawback is the early withdrawal penalty. And this is really best for employees maximizing employer match and looking for tax deferred growth. And so we'll go on now to the fourth one, which is the SEP IRA, that's self-employed IRA. And this is for people that maybe they own their own company, maybe they're an individual sole proprietor, or they have a company with just a couple employees and they want to be able to contribute. And so there's some opportunities for you here. And I encourage you, if you own your own company, if you're a sole proprietor, to look into this because it's a great way to lessen your tax burden now and to contribute some really high amounts toward your future. The contribution on this is the lesser of 66,000 or 25% of your compensation. So the lesser that means, let's say you're making $100,000, the lesser of that is $25,000, 25% of the 100,000. Now let's say you make $1 million, then 25% is 250,000. You can't contribute that amount. You can only contribute the lesser, which is the 66,000. So they do limit how much you can put into that. But it is still a nice chunk, $66,000 if you're a high earner, even if you're only making, $50,000 and you can only put in 12,500 each year. That's still money you can put into this. This tax benefit, tax growth, tax deferred growth IRA, the SEP IRA. Benefits are the high contribution limits for self-employed. It gives you that opportunity. It's tax deductible. So when you go and you make that contribution to your SEP IRA, you're getting the tax benefit now, but you're paying taxes when you withdraw that. There's no Roth option on this. With the 401k, some companies have a Roth option. So you can contribute to your 401k at work with a Roth option. So you're paying taxes, but it's converting into a Roth. So when you go to use that, it's tax free. With the SEP, there's no Roth option on that. So that's something to keep in mind. But again, if you're self-employed, you don't have a 401k, and it's an opportunity for you to put more than that $6,500 that a regular IRA would allow you. And this is obviously best for self-employed individuals or small business owners with just a few employees. Now, the fifth account I want you to be aware of, and I think this is the most underutilized and maybe the most misunderstood account that's out there. And this is the health savings account. And not everybody has access to this, and not everybody wants to have access to it because of the requirements in order to have it. So let's look at that real quick. I get a little sip there of water. Now, and we're just going to pretend that's water for those who are wondering. Now, health savings account, known as the HSA, has contribution limits. We'll start with that, and then we're going to get into some of the amazing benefits with this. The contribution limits are $4,150 if you're single or for an individual. If you have a family plan, you can contribute up to $8,300. And if you're 55 and older, you can add an additional $1,000 to either the individual or the family plan. So a family on this 55 and older could put $9,300 into the HSA. Again, this is a really big opportunity because here are the benefits of an HSA. It's a triple tax benefit. It's a triple threat. But there's also a fourth benefit that I'd say most people don't know. A lot of people don't even know about. So let's start with the three benefits. One is when you put the money in, you don't pay taxes on. It's contributed pre-tax. So like the regular IRA or 401k, you get the pre-tax benefit now. So if I put in $8,300 this year, I get to deduct that from my income so I don't pay taxes on it this year. So that's advantage number one. Number two is it grows tax-free. So as long as it's in that account and there's investment opportunities in there, just like an 401k, I can put investments into things that are growing, mutual funds that are growing my money. So that is growing tax-free. So that's benefit number two. Just like all of the others I just mentioned, they have tax-free growth. But then that has the third is the tax-free withdrawal for medical expenses. And there's a couple exceptions we'll talk about, but think about that. The money goes in, you get the tax benefit, it grows tax-free, and you get to take it out and not pay taxes on it. And a lot of people think, well, I don't want too much money tied up in that because when I'm, 65, 70 years old, how much am I really going to be spending on, medical expenses? And I'll need a lot of my money. I don't want it tied up in there. You can still take it out for non-medical after 65. You're just going to pay the taxes on the growth just like you would in a traditional IRA. So you still would get the first two benefits if you don't use it for medical purpose. Say you're 66 years old and you just need an extra 10 grand. You take it out of your HSA. You're going to pay the taxes as income, but it grew tax-free. You got the tax break before. But here's one of the things people don't realize with the HSA. And I'll give you an example for my own life. You can use medical expenses from prior years as long as you haven't been reimbursed for them yet. So I'm going to guess here. I think it was, don't quote me on this. I think I was 52 and I had LASIK surgery. It cost me a couple grand, but I paid for that cash. I paid for that out of pocket, but I kept the receipt and it's filed in my HSA account. So when I am retiring, when I need some extra money, but I don't want to pay taxes on that, maybe I'm at a point in my income in my retirement year, I need an extra 5 grand, but I don't want to get 5 more grand on my tax burden. I can use that receipt and reimburse myself as a medical expense and get that third benefit of tax-free withdrawal, even though I didn't have the medical expense that year. I had it, 10 years ago. As long as I had the HSA when I had the expense and I did not reimburse myself, I can reimburse myself anytime down the road. So that is a huge benefit why tying up a lot of money in an HSA isn't a bad idea, because it's gone in, you got the tax benefit, it's growing tax-free, and you can withdraw it tax-free, and you can stockpile all your receipts. Every time I go to the drugstore and I get vitamins, I get a Band-Aid, I get anything medical, I keep those receipts, and I have tens of thousands of dollars in a file that when I'm ready and I'm starting to withdraw from my HSA, but I don't want to pay taxes, because if I take out five more $1,000, it takes me from a 12 to a 15, or a 15 to a 22% tax bracket. But if I take out 5,000 from my HSA, getting reimbursed from prior medical situations, receipts that I kept, I don't go up in my tax bracket. So that's a huge, huge benefit. A lot of people don't realize, but here's the downfall. You have to keep track of it. You have to keep your records. You can't just say, oh, yeah, I remember I bought some medical supplies 10 years ago. I didn't reimburse myself. You're going to need the receipts. So you have to have a good file system and keep those. But a huge benefit. Imagine, when you're 66 years old and you need to pay your premiums, you can take that out of your HSA and it's not increasing your income for taxes. So it's a great way to keep your tax burden low in retirement. And when you combine this with, a Roth, and maybe you have some traditional and a 401k, you have these funds. Maybe I'm taking out so many dollars from my IRA, getting dividends, which are at a really low tax bracket, and I'm at the lowest tax bracket possible, and I can stay there and still get extra money out by taking this HSA withdrawal and using prior receipts that I've had. So that's why I'm a big, big fan of HSAs. So let's go into my recommended order of contributions. You can take this or leave it. Leave a comment in the chat. What's your favorite type of account? The Roth IRA, the traditional IRA, the 401k. Do you have a SEP? Maybe you're self-employed, or an HSA. What's your favorite type of account, and which one do you contribute to first? If you say you only have $500 that you can contribute each month, where's that going? Is it going in your Roth? Is it going in a traditional? Is it going into a 401k? Just leave a comment. Let's see how everybody, decides how they do it. I'm going to give you my recommendation and the reason why. So my first recommendation, if you have a 401k available and it has a company match, I encourage that's your first number one place to put it, because that is free money. That's 100% return on investment. If I put in $3,000 and it gets matched $3,000, I have just got a 100% return on my money instantaneously. There's nothing you're going to invest in your Roth, in your traditional, in your HSA that's going to get you get your match, but only go up to your match. I'm just going to throw numbers. Don't quote me on these because I don't have it all written down. Let's just say your match is $3,000. So $3,000 is what you contribute to your 401k this year, but you actually have $5,000 you're able to contribute. I would take that extra 2,000 and I would open up a Roth and then start putting the money in the Roth. Now, let's say you have a lot of extra disposable cash that you can invest. Get your match, then max out your Roth IRA if you're able, if your income's not too high. If you're able to max out your Roth IRA, do that. If you still have money to invest, max out your HSA, get that triple tax advantage and future healthcare savings. That is number two. I actually recommend the Roth before the HSA, but once you've maxed that Roth out, I would highly encourage you to get the HSA if you have that available. You have to have a high deductible medical plan in order to qualify for the HSA. And a lot of people would rather have a low deductible, maybe feel a little more secure with a lower deductible, and that's fine. So if you don't have the HSA, match from your 401k, max out your Roth, max out the HSA if it's available and you have that, then go back to your 401k and max that out. Again, you can go up to $23,000 in your 401k. You don't want to max that out and then go to your Roth, because remember, when you get older, 73, you don't want to have to take money out, and you want to be able to have that tax-free withdrawal, because You're not thinking about it now, especially if you're 25, 35, even 45 years old. You're probably not thinking about withdrawing money when you're 73, 74 years old, but you don't want to have to take money out if you don't need it. And the required minimum distribution requires you to take that out, even if you don't need it. And that can put you in a lot of difficult situations. So max out that Roth, then go to the HSA, then go back to your 401k and max that out. And if you still have disposable income after you've maxed out your Roth, you maxed out your HSA, and you maxed out your 401k, you're up to about, what's that, about $35,000 if you're under 50 years old. You're contributing 3,000 a month. Congratulations, first of all, because it means you uh, are earning a good income and you have a lot of disposable income left, which is great. So that in itself deserves applause. And if you still have more money to invest, then just consider opening a taxable brokerage account. And that can be an advantage for if you want to retire early. It's a bridge account before you can withdraw these tax advantaged accounts, so you can get to have some income while you're waiting to turn 59 and a half and be able to access these other funds. So having a taxable brokerage account isn't a bad thing. And again, if you've already maxed out all these others, you're doing fantastic. And especially if you're young, that's going to grow and compound to extreme numbers that you'll be amazed at when you get to that time when you're ready to utilize it. So that's the order of contributions that I would do. That's my personal recommendation. Again, there may be some reasons why someone wouldn't want to do that. And I'd be curious, if you don't, what's your reason why you don't? Just throw a comment in the chat, like why you'd choose to maybe do a Roth before the match, just to throw one out there. Just out of curiosity and interest for the group, tell us why that is and why you would do that. So those are the 5 accounts I think you need to make sure you understand and that you have them. And kind of like what I say about debt payoff, the snowball or the avalanche method, which one's the best? There's really pros and cons to all of these, just like these investment accounts. There's pros and cons of all of them. So, which one's the best? We can have our opinions. There's pros, there's cons. The bottom line, what really works best is if you do it. Doesn't matter. I would rather you jump in and just, even if you're in a taxable brokerage account. Is that the best method? No. Is that the most advantageous? No. But if you're getting in the habit and contributing to it on a regular basis, that's still better than nothing. And you're still going to make amazing headway. So, first thing is make the decision, find the ability to begin to make some investments. And if you've followed this channel at all, if you watch some of the videos on the channel, I highly recommend getting out of debt first. Get your 401k match, but after that, don't be contributing. Get that debt paid off. Get those credit cards gone, get the car payments gone, get that all done with. Then you'll have tons of disposable cash because all that you've been spending on your debt, you can now be contributing to these different accounts. But make the habit, make the consistency of investing, and you'll see yourself in years with so much money that you'll be surprised. And that's the compounding. Again, on the channel, we have videos that show examples of compounding. I have one I just did on SCHG, how that if you had invested $50,000 over 10 years, past performance, where you would be at with that. It's just amazing seeing that compounding. And the longer you go, just how it snowballs, just like debt snowball paying off, compound interest growing for you is an amazing, amazing process. And so I encourage you to get into that, make those decisions to begin investing and make your future brighter with that financial freedom. That's all we have for tonight. I appreciate you joining us. Hope you enjoy this video. If you like it, hit that like and subscribe button. Share this with somebody that you think might be able to find some useful information from it. It helps us get more of these videos out for others. And I appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time on Simply Money.